We have some massive pro wrestling news to discuss in today's video. I'm going to put timestamps in the description down below. Really quickly, Tyson Kidd. Yeah, he confirmed that he is actually retired from in-ring competition. This is not necessarily a shocker. 7-8 years ago, he had a really big career-threatening injury. A lot of people knew about this. He talked about this on McGuire on Wrestling, a new interview that just recently dropped. And basically, he confirmed that he's not going to return to the ring. A lot of guys say they retire, then they come back. And he was basically just pointing out that it's not going to be him. For those who don't know, Tyson Kidd's been working backstage with WWE with tons of influence on the growth of the women's division. He's been doing a lot of great things backstage. Obviously, a lot of people have taken notice to that. There's been a lot of talks about Tyson Kidd being very well received backstage, which is always a great thing. I think Tyson Kidd's a hell of a talent. It's definitely interesting, right? 8 years later, look how much the wrestling industry has changed. With AEW and New Japan doing some really cool stuff together, you have to wonder, what WWE would be doing with Tyson Kidd, especially now with WWE. A lot more wrestling matches are happening on TV where like guys actually get to go out and wrestle. Tyson Kidd probably would have had a really good fitting, in modern day wrestling too. But also at the same time, I like the fact that it seems like he's come to grips with everything, and it obviously sucks because I was a huge Tyson Kidd fan when he was on TV, and I just think he's a hell of a talent. But of course, being backstage and actually contributing to the growth of the company and the product, I think that's really awesome. I think that's one of the good things about what WWE allows some of these guys to do. We see it with Jason Jordan as well and some other talent who aren't able to compete. They're still able to be involved, and I do think that's a good thing. Guys, what is going on with Elias? Well, it appears WWE doesn't actually have creative plans for Elias, and it makes me wonder what could potentially change. For those who don't know, his contract ends reportedly at the end of the year. I don't like speculating on wrestlers losing their jobs. That's not my thing. I know other YouTube channels like to do that, but there is a real life that exists outside of YouTube and Twitter. But I do think it is important for me to mention that Elias's contract does end at the end of the year. According to Ringside News, they're saying that Elias doesn't have any creative plans and his name hasn't been brought up whatsoever in creative meetings. But as you guys know, WWE making a lot of changes to their creative process. A lot of new faces are being introduced to the product. I think Elias is actually a great talent, and I think Elias would be the next main roster wrestler that could benefit from going down to NXT. When you look at NXT, Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo, God, I don't know why his name is so hard to pronounce for some reason, but they're both in NXT now, and it seems like they have a plan. It seems like they have a vision. Watching main roster talent go down to NXT to do something until WWE's main roster could figure out plans, I think that's always a good idea. But the reason why I bring up the contract status thing too is because WWE at this stage of the game very well might not be releasing talent, but they might let talent contracts expire just like AEW does. It's very interesting. It's definitely something to pay attention to. And then also just to kind of throw it out there could always be a reason that he's not on TV that's not being discussed, right? Like Lance Archer recently revealed that, he's had like some injuries and stuff, and he didn't disclose it to anybody publicly. So you never know. That could always be a thing too. I don't like when a lot of people speculate on things, but obviously as of right now, WWE doesn't have plans for him. Massive story coming from Boozer. Yeah, BWE coming out and dropping some massive news. The WWE NXT Championship belts are expected to possibly be defended at this year's SummerSlam, which I have been saying this for the longest time. NXT should be involved in WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble. They should be involved in the Big Four. According to BWE, they've reported that there are discussions going around to have 2 NXT titles involved in SummerSlam or during SummerSlam week. And I love this idea. Especially now that we know Nick Khan and WWE want NXT to be viewed as a third brand. I like the idea of NXT having their own PLEs. I don't want to see that go away. I don't want to see that change whatsoever. I think it's really important that NXT PLEs continue to remain. We know NXT has Great American Bash, which takes place on July 30th. And then just a few days later, we have on August 5th, SummerSlam. If you are going to have main roster talent cross over into NXT, this idea that NXT talent could be featured on SummerSlam or WrestleMania could be a really good thing. This is how you're going to get people exposed to what NXT is and how much it's changed from before. And yes, as somebody who loves NXT, and I throw it out there all the time, I love NXT's weekly show. They are consistently doing storytelling across the show from A to Z. They're building up talent. They're introducing new talent. They're putting on fun matches. Some people seem to be really pissed off at the fact that I enjoy NXT. But the thing is, the reality is that NXT has improved so much, and I want to see them continue to flourish. So if WWE is going to look at guys like Braun Breaker or Carmelo Hayes or Joe Gacy or Tyler Bate or Wes Lee or Dragon Lee, if they're looking at this crop of talent, right? And don't forget, you got Cora Jade and Roxanne Perez and Tiffany Stratton. You have a ton of talent. If you want them to grow, if you want them to develop, take the ones who are the most developed, right? The ones who are most ready for main roster and put them on those PLEs and let them wrestle. Let them do something cool. Don't do no gimmicky finishes or some bullshit like that. Let them go onto the show. Or at the very least, if you don't want them on the main card, I don't think it's a bad idea to have kickoff shows feature matches again, because I do miss that. And I feel like that doesn't even have to be just used for NXT, but they need to bring back kickoff matches. All right, guys, some final news surrounding AEW. We got two stories. New Japan president Takami Obari, he said in a new interview with Reuters that he is interested in having New Japan talent appear at AEW All In. I'm not opposed to this whatsoever. Years before AEW came out, I said there should be stadium shows with all of WWE's rival companies coming together and doing a stadium show. And then AEW came around and we're getting Forbidden Door, and that's fine and dandy. But I think Forbidden Door should actually just go away and use All In for its original purpose, right? The purpose of All In initially was to bring all this talent independently together from different companies. And I feel like if you want New Japan involved with All In, that's the right way to go about it. Have New Japan bring in talent from, or have AEW bring in talent from New Japan. If you want, get Impact involved, sell out the stadiums, do this every single year, make this your WrestleMania, and then get rid of Forbidden Door and use All In as the wrestling WrestleMania for everybody that's not WWE. Then Forbidden Door 2 could be replaced by another pay-per-view for AEW that is more focused on the storylines and the storytelling and building up your own talent. That's what I would do. That's kind of how I look at it. I think it's a little too redundant to have Forbidden Door 2 and then like a month or two later have All In and the same talent are on both shows. At the end of the day, AEW really has some potential, but I just feel like there is a lack of vision there, and this can solve that. Because, again, you got to remember, you, the consumer, are spending money to go to these events. You are spending money to watch these events and to support the events. And it really wouldn't make sense to support something that's the same thing and then do it again 2 months later. And then, guys, that brings us to our final story. Just some quick thoughts. EJ Nduka, he has reportedly signed to AEW. We know at some point he was expected to go to WWE. There was tons of rumors on WWE and AEW both being interested. We saw him go to AEW on Dark. He did, I think it was Konosuke Takeshita. That was at like Universal Studios. This was a while ago. I think like maybe in the winter, December, November, January, something like that. But now Fightful Select basically came out and said that he did, in fact, sign with the company. The type of deal that he signed, the length or whatever, there is nothing about that. Yeah, so basically it sounds like EJ Nduka has been under contract for a little bit of time, and AEW hasn't done anything with him. He's a hell of a talent. I think he's going to work out very well in AEW. I think he's going to work out very well pretty much wherever he goes. The reality is AEW signs a lot of people. They don't use a lot of people. With Collision coming around, that seems to be the solution. Make a big splash with him. Let's see what they do. But if you really want me to get invested in the people that you're signing, you got to do something with them. And I think he's got all the tools to be successful. So I'm pretty optimistic about this. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.